Hello, virtual educators. It's me, Kelly Austin, and I'm going to go over the LTVD reflection form here. Now, the reflection form is step number 8 of the LTVD process, and this is that group processing aspect of cooperative learning where the students are really thinking about what they did personally to support the group and how the group interacted, the synergy of the group as a whole. So, the reflector, it says here, must complete this document with the group and submit to the group file exchange. It should also be submitted with the final draft of each unit. So you will want to determine where you want the reflector to submit this form. I have a group page for every group, and they have a section called the file exchange where they can submit their documents, and this is one set of documents that they submit over the course of the semester. So this form can be pulled up at the end of the session. Some reflectors like to have it on the screen. I always tell them that I prefer that they not, because it's supposed to be kind of a quick paced thing, and so then if you have to wait for the reflector to share their desktop and pull it up and then read each one of these, and a lot of them like to try to fill in the answer while they're, and all of that's going on when the group members are pretty much, ready to go. They've gone through this whole process, and so now they're ready to go. So you want this to be as seamless as possible. So I ask that they not pull this document up, but some of them like to do it, and it's no big deal if they do. But the way that I have it, the way that I teach them is not to pull it up. The example of the session that I show them, they don't pull it up. So whatever you want them to do, you kind of model it for them. So what happens is the reflector is going to say, we're going to go through the group performance rating scale. Okay, let's back up. First, they're going to fill out this part at the top and put the group name, session date, reflector. If it's on the file exchange, they're going to say yes or no as to whether or not they put it on the file exchange. I just put that there to help them to remember to put it there. Uh, so, but it's obviously not on the file exchange when they're going through it. Okay, so the group performance rating scale, they let their group members know that they're rating each one of these statements from 0 to 4. Okay, major difficulty, needs improvement, okay, very good, excellent. Okay, now what they're going to do is this. The reflector is going to read statement number 1. This is why I really don't like for it to be on the screen. I like for them to be listening, and then they can quickly put their answer in the chat box. So after the reflector reads the statement, each person in the group is going to post a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the chat box. They don't say anything. They don't give any commentary. They don't say, oh, I don't know, where are all the members here, blah, 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 blah. They just put their number in the chat box. The reflector will then add up those numbers and get an average, okay? And so whatever the average score is, that's what they scored on that particular statement. The group doesn't have to see this, what the average was, because they can see the numbers in the chat box. So they don't have to see what their overall number is. Now, as with any of this that I'm teaching you, you know how teachers are, we have our own flair and our own flavor. So if you want them to announce what the average number was, you can. There are some reflectors who say, oh, okay, so we earned a 3 on that one. But that's not what I want them to do. I want it to just go from one statement to the next, to the next, to the next, because they have access to this document. It's on the file exchange. If they want to see the results of all of this, they can go to the file exchange, after it's posted and see it, okay? But we want this part to go by quickly because they have put in a lot of work during their discussion time. So for example, here we go. All members of the group have microphones and use them effectively. So everybody puts their number, 2, 3, 1, 4, and then you can see if you're either in the session looking then, or if you're watching the recording, you can see how each group member felt about this part, okay, about this statement. Statement number 2, the chat box was used well to support the flow and dispensation of information. So you can see how they rate each other on that. Did people speak first and then put their information in the chat box? They're thinking there about that process, about that statement, and then they're going to rate it in the chat box. All right, number 3, the whiteboard was used well to support the flow and dispensation of information. So that's this board that's right in the middle of the screen in Blackboard Collaborate. And whatever LMS that you use that has a live capability, you're going to have a part in the middle where everybody can see. So it's asking you, was that part used well? So the Whiteboard Tech, this is kind of evaluating, not kind of, but it really is evaluating the Whiteboard Tech and how well that person did. All members of the group were present and ready to begin the session at 6:30 p.m. You would have to change this to whatever time your class begins, your virtual session begins. Okay, so they're going to rate that. If they had people coming in late, if they had people who, and usually what we do is we just only, this is for people who actually came to class. We're not, when we say all members, we're talking about the ones who actually came to class. Those that are not present, we're not assessing them. Okay, so that's the question that comes up sometimes. All right, number 5, based upon the flow of the discussion, it was evident that everyone had read the assigned material and recorded their responses for each step before class began. So here they're evaluating whether or not, when I told you that they speak first and they post in the chat box second, well, is it taking people forever to get their information in the chat box? Are people typing their information in the chat box for some reason? Sometimes you have technical difficulties where people will say it won't copy and paste or something's going on. Very rare, but it's technology. So this is where they kind of evaluate how well did it appear that somebody was, taking a little while because they weren't prepared, which very rarely happens because we have that accountability piece where I know who has not done their template. And I address that before class begins, and that's why you want the template due 2 to 3 days before, because what I do not allow is for students to come in class and who have not prepared for class. And so we'll talk about that more when we talk about the pitfalls of synchronous discussions. We'll talk about some alternatives for those people who do not prepare for the session. Okay, all right. Then the next one is the timekeeper did a great job making the group aware of time constraints. So now we're evaluating the timekeeper. The group leader made sure that everyone equally participated and displayed effective leadership skills. So now we're rating the group leader. Every step of the LTVD process was thoroughly discussed. So now we're rating the process. Did we go through every process, every step of the process? Group members were able to accept constructive criticism. Okay, were they able to accept constructive criticism or not? Were there people getting attitudes when someone maybe gave them some feedback? Was it even constructive? So that's what we can rate that. All right, group members practice cooperative learning skills, helping and supporting each other and allowing each member to feel like a valuable part of the team. Okay, so that's where we're kind of analyzing ourselves as an entire group as to whether or not we, those skills that we learned about that are embedded in cooperative learning, they learn those skills too, remember, in the independent study unit. So they're now thinking about whether these skills were practiced. Okay, and then there's a total they're going to get. And it says take the average of the group's responses for each statement, add the ratings to obtain the final score, enter the total score here, and then they can know whether they're rated as exceptional, developing, skilled, inadequate, and proficient. So the reflector will let them know, will take a few moments and let them know what their rating scale answer was, or their rating scale rating, I guess I should say, was. All right, so then they come here and they have 2 questions to answer. It says discuss these questions during the session and answer in complete sentences. Consider the areas above and be honest about the group's performance. Improvement can only come when areas of difficulty are acknowledged. Now this is where they can have commentary, conversation, discussion about any of these things up here in the rating scale that they wanted to expound upon, or other issues that may have come up, because the first question says, what did the group do extremely well during this session? Be specific. And I have this question first so they can focus on, the positive things that they did during the session and have a discussion about that. So I like for everybody to respond, but it's not mandatory, but that's the culture that we've set up, that with all the questions we look for a response from everybody else, even if they say, well, I totally agree with what Kelly said, and blah blah blah. We like for everybody to give their input, and it's up to the group leader to make sure that everyone is able to speak. And number two is, in what areas does the group need to improve? Be specific. So I teach them, that's the only way you're going to get better is if you're honest with each other. Be honest in here. Don't send me an email talking about somebody when you haven't addressed it with the group first. And if something is habitual, like somebody's coming in late every single week for some reason, that's something that I need to know, and that's something that I will see on their forms as well. But that's something you can email me about, and we talk about those things, that they can, private things they want to let me know. Some students feel uncomfortable talking to their group members about certain issues until they get a little further down into the semester. So it just depends on the group. Like with any other class, whether you're in K-12 or higher ed, every year your groups are different, and each group within a semester will be different. So this is the reflection form, and that is how they process how well they worked individually and how well they worked as a group. Okay, until the next video, I will see you soon.